With your friend's dad's wildly inappropriate guidance, did you put yourself in the shoes of an intrepid PI trudging through the rough and tumble streets of New York and the perpetually soaked and steamy alleys and courtyards of New Orleans in 1955? Did you work a case that with each twist and turn seemed to shove you closer and closer to a string of murder raps getting hung around your neck while working for a guy with some very gross fingernails? Did you bang Denise from The Cosby Show after she told you she was 16, getting soaked in a deluge of blood showering down on the pair of you from your leaky hotel ceiling? Is that just the tip of the Freudian iceberg, ruining you forever at the ripe old age of 9? If so, you might have just found yourself in the Unkind Rewind, where you watched the 1987 banger? Angel Heart.
Get to the chopper!
You know what you are? You're one of those little fancy lads, aren't you?
Link and I are cruising the mountain, bro. We figured we'd squeeze a little juice.
Where are you at, listeners? I'm Josh Dugan, coming to you from way up the Mississippi in St. Paul, where the streets haven't known slush like upstate New York of 1955, apparently. As always, I'm joined by Ivor Novello, reincarnate, Sean McGrath, our matinee idol. How are you feeling, Sean?
Good. I need to get the mustache going.
Big time.
Hot off my SAG screening of Maestro, and I gotta tell you, could have used a sex scene like that from Angel Heart, and it's the one thing I think that's holding those two up from Academy consideration.
Yeah, it should have been soaked in blood.
We should be seeing Bradley Cooper's ass cheeks.
For real.
Yeah, there were some definite opportunities where we could have walked in on Bradley Cooper's ass cheeks. Probably not with Carey Mulligan in the scenes.
Yeah, sure. In a first for this very young podcast, we're joined by my Munch My Benson co-host, Adam Schwitters, but this time he'll be occupying the guest seat as he had the seminal childhood experience of seeing fucking Angel Heart at the age of 8 or 9. Adam, how are you doing?
It's a good word choice, seminal, for this, because I think you can go a few different directions with that.
Sure.
I'm terrible, man. I have like norovirus or something. I've been puking my guts out all day.
Are you sure you just don't have a case of the Angel Heart?
I might. Basically, I feel the way Mickey Rourke looks throughout that whole film. So
yeah.
So yeah, pretty grimy, gritty and grimy and sweaty around these parts.
Somebody put a curse on Adam.
Uh-oh.
Maybe. I think it was my friend's dad when I was 9 years old.
Sure.
That's who did it.
You're paying the piper now.
Mm-hmm.
So, obviously, Adam, you saw this as a kid, but Sean, had you seen this film before?
No, I only heard of it. I heard of it kind of in the same breath of like a Jacob's Ladder.
Understandably.
Yeah, they were a couple years apart, but I feel like these two kind of had some type of, I don't know, relationship or...
There's some shared juju.
Yeah, some thematic overtones that they both shared. And yeah, both of those I managed to avoid most of my life. Yeah. And then saw both in the last couple years. So.
We did a watch party for fucking Jacob's Ladder, didn't we?
Jacob's Ladder watch party, yeah.
Unlike Sean, I had seen this once or twice before watching it for the podcast. I, however, saw it at an entirely appropriate age of 19 and then probably 24.
Yeah.
At least as appropriate as it can be when you're watching this, I guess. The main thing I remembered was the obvious thing, which was the shower of blood sex scene, which is pretty iconic.
Spoiler alert, he fucks his own daughter to death.
No, No, I've watched it twice. He doesn't fuck her to death there.
We're going to get to it.
Okay, it's a little unclear.
No, it's not unclear. We see her live after. I promise. Because I thought when I watched it for the first time for this, I thought that had happened, but it didn't. Because we see her and other people are out there. He didn't do that. That was to Niro.
Lou Cypher did that.
Yeah. So this is the first time you'd seen Angel Heart in its entirety since you were 9.
Yeah, I believe so.
But yeah, I think we sort of agreed that it was a monumental movie for you.
Yeah, it's definitely something that I was very grossed out by it, but also totally titillated by it, at the same time.
Yeah.
Adam, was this the first movie to kind of come to mind when you were wearing both hats as a co-host and a guest? When it was posited to you to kind of come up with your Unkind Rewind options? Was Angel Heart like your first choice?
Yeah, absolutely. Because I think I'm just talking with Josh, like, how fucked up was it that my friend's dad was like, yeah, you guys can watch that. That's cool.
So this is, just to be clear, and I know that we've talked about this, but this was in the family's collection. It wasn't like the dad was watching it and you guys came in.
No. I don't know if he bought these VHSs or if he recorded them off satellite or something, but he had this like epic collection. It wasn't even in the same room with the TV. He just had this like card filing system. Mm-hmm. And so we were just kind of like looking through cards, and we were probably looking through the A's, and we're like, what's Angel Heart? And he was like, oh, you guys want to watch that? Yeah, you should watch that. It's like, oh, thanks, Mr. Dodge.
So without going too deep too early, since we can take our time unpeeling this onion,
yeah.
Did you have any strange reactions or revelations on this revisitation?
I mean, what surprised me is how quickly I remembered what happened.
Okay.
Like the big plot twist that's supposed to shock you in the end. I was like, oh yeah, he's Johnny Favorite. And I feel like it's telegraphed. Like, it would be hard not to think that, at least at certain times, I think. But that came back to me completely.
I had forgotten that was the twist.
That came back to me, like, right away. That being the biggest thing. Because, like, there was, like, obviously the various kind of sex scenes I remembered. And I remembered the various kind of, like, weird hearts on a table scenes. Things like that really stuck in my craw. But I was surprised that I remembered the... Like, as soon as I started watching it, the plot just immediately came back to me.
Okay.
Which... I don't even remember really watching the whole movie. Like, I feel like I was like looking away from it half the time when I was a kid.
Sure.
Were there any other movies besides Angel Heart that were part of this guy's collection that you would have caught, that you would have been as indelible a memory as Angel Heart?
No, I mean, I'm sure I watched other movies at their house, but they were all kid-appropriate films that didn't really stick with me. I don't have very many memories of that. I mean, I would go over there a bunch because they were just around the corner from me, and we would play or do whatever. But this is the only movie I remember watching there.
Did this friend's father egg you on to smoke your first cigarette?
He was a heavy smoker, now that you mention it.
Did you pick up that habit from him? Because, man, you used to be a heavy smoker.
I did, yeah. But no, I did not. But maybe it normalized it for me because he was the only like.
Or did it make it aspirational?
A little bit, yeah.
Because I mean, this guy's pretty cool if he's showing kids Angel Heart when they're 9.
I know, right?
Cool enough to smoke a cigarette.
The other thing I remember about this guy is that he was like obsessed with nail trimming. Like he would like trim his kids' nails at least once a week, which I always thought was a little weird.
Yeah.
That's like his thing.
But is that related to Lou Cypher in this?
You'd have to go ask him. I don't know if he's still alive, but
there are some nice close-ups of nails in this.
Oh,
yeah.
God. Ooh.
Okay, so you said of your first time watching this. I'm going to throw to the clip here. Give me a second.
Mm-hmm. I watched this when I was 9 because my friend's father, Mr. Dodge, had all his VHS cassettes like he had like a Dewey Decimal System or something. Yeah. And we're going through it. He's like, yeah, you got whatever you guys want to watch. And we're like, what's Angel Heart? He was like, oh, you want to watch that? Sure, let's watch that.
So obviously Max isn't really at the age where he's having friends over to watch movies after school, but you are a father. Can you put yourself in Mr. Dodge's shoes and fathom a reality in which you let your kid's 9-year-old friend watch this film?
I mean, maybe things were different back in whatever. This would have been
1988 or so.
89. But no, absolutely not. Like I could conceive of him watching this like in high school, but not when he's 9 fucking years old.
Yeah. And Mr. Dodge was in the room, right?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, he was sitting there kind of like smiling the whole time, as I recall.
Spinning a walking cane. Eating an egg with salt.
Yeah.
What about Angel Heart, when you're pulling it out of the card catalog, do you think might have appealed to you kids?
That's a really good question, because I don't think that there was any information on it besides just the name. So I have no idea why that would have been the thing we chose. I think we just like probably looked through like 3 or 4 things and like, that sounds boring. That sounds boring. That sounds boring. What's this? And Mr. Dodge is probably like, oh, it's awesome. Let's watch it.
It does have a little bit of maybe a rad cartoon from Japan from the early 90s kind of feel to it or something.
But this is before you would have had a frame of reference for that. This is...
Exactly. I'm trying to think what frame of reference I could have had, and
right.
The only thing now that you're bringing it up is Lady Hawk. It has like a similar kind of
portmanteau quality.
Yeah, yeah, exactly.
You're like, I know angels, I know hearts.
Yeah. Lady Hawk, that's great. I love that movie.
Maybe Lisa Bonet was listed on it?
Maybe. But when I was 9 years old, I would have recognized her from watching the Cosby Show, but I probably didn't know her name, if I had to guess.
Okay. All right. So we asked you what you remembered the plot being loosely, and you said...
To me, this movie is like a insane fever dream. It stars Mickey Rourke, and Mickey Rourke is some kind of detective. And he's in New Orleans, I believe, because he's dealing with like voodoo shit. And what I remember it is that Robert De Niro plays the devil, and he peels an egg in the most fucked up way anybody's ever peeled an egg. And also, Denise Richards is in it, and it's not Denise Richards?
No. But I love that you thought it was.
Keep going.
No, it's not Denise Richards. I'm just blanking on her name. Oh, why am
Lisa
I blanking on her
Bonet.
name? But Lisa Bonet, yeah, from The Cosby Show.
Yeah.
Anyway, sorry. Not Denise Richards, Lisa Bonet. Lisa Bonet from The Cosby Show, and she got canned from The Cosby Show, and they started A Different World because of this film. I know that much. But she and Mickey Rourke are banging in like a weird lit room where there's like chicken blood dripping from the ceiling onto her beautifully naked back and ass. I remember that scene. And I also remember another scene where there's like I'm assuming she's a sex worker, but a woman who's like, it feels like she's like putting on stockings for like half an hour. Those are essentially the scenes I remember from the film.
Sure.
What movie was that? What was the stocking?
No, the stockings are in this.
With the journalist and the
with the journalist after the bar.
Yeah.
It was not putting them on; it was taking them off. But
Gotcha.
The first like naked scene.
Yeah, Adam, you idiot.
that putting concrete, your stockings fetish, Adam.
Oh, big time.
And and I think so much of the blood splatters on her chest as opposed to her back.
And it's
true,
more on
absolutely.
his back.
It's more on
which-
his ass and back than
Yes.
her.
Yeah.
Well, easily mistakable for Lisa Bonet's.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I believe it's somewhat nondescript blood, right? Could be any kind of blood.
It's not.
Yeah, it's
I mean,
just you're
not
assuming it's
explicitly
chicken blood because of all the voodoo before. Yeah.
of all the voodoo stuff. And then, of course, watching it, I got this thing about chickens I really enjoyed. That did take me back.
That joke really does kind of play out over the movie.
Uh-huh.
You know, it's nicely done. It's not too...
Lots of callbacks.
Lots of callbacks, but like it doesn't
have to take over. Yeah.
It's not super telegraphed, is what I'm saying, right? Like, it's just a nice thing. It doesn't end up being like Indiana Jones's aversion to snakes.
Sure.
Even when he's in that weird shootout at the barn. Of course, it's a fucking room full of chickens that he kicks into.
Mm-hmm.
So were you surprised that it started in New York?
A little bit, but it makes sense.
Oh,
watching
completely.
it. But yeah, I was like, I'm looking at the thing and it's like, yeah, are they going to go to New Orleans? They did go to New Orleans, right? I mean, that's kind of what I was thinking for a while.
Sure.
There is some production value to this in a lot of ways. Even that train depot scene.
Well, Adam and I have seen that train depot.
Yeah, we have.
With a decommissioned train like that?
We saw that in SVU. They shot a scene there, and Adam went through a lot of work to figure out what train station that was, and it was Hoboken.
Yeah, it was Hoboken.
Oh, very cool. Yeah. It definitely ratcheted up the kind of production of this movie in
for sure,
in my estimation.
Apparently, they had to shut down Elridge Street for like 6 months or something while they were dressing it. Like it was an inordinately long time. Maybe it was just a month.
It wasn't that much, but I know they were doing set deck and all that shit for
ages.
Or a month or two beforehand. Yeah.
So many old cars, so many old...
Well, that was like in LA when they were doing all the shit on Hollywood Boulevard and for Once Upon a Time in Hollywood.
Right.
Yeah. And on Magazine in New Orleans, too, they did the same thing. Basically, they had to take out anything that was like a primary color. Everything was like, they just had to dust everything, basically.
Yeah.
And get a lot of old cars.
So did the egg peeling take you on a journey, Adam?
Oh, it sure did. In my mind, he did the whole peel from the top down.
Which would have been impossible. Yeah.
Yeah, it wasn't quite that amazing, but it's still a very gross close-up of Robert De Niro's disgusting fingernails doing that. It's still a very evocative scene.
Oh, yeah. Do you think it was the finest acting of his career?
It's really good. He's really good at this.
He's good at this.
You might not love the insane...
Much to Mickey Rourke's chagrin, which we'll get into later.
I don't even know if he stands up in this movie.
I don't think he does. I think he just sits back the whole time.
No, I think he's standing outside of the room at the very end. But that's it.
Maybe.
No, he's sitting on a divan.
Chaise lounge or something.
Yeah, like a love seat at Margaret Kusamark's.
No. After he kills what's-her-face.
Oh, maybe.
Yeah.
Okay.
After he kills Lisa Bonet, I believe he's either standing or squatting in a doorway or something, but that's the only time.
Because he finally sees the ghost woman that he's kept like in the dream sequences, almost seeing her face, and it's Robert De Niro's face. That's what it is.
There's a cut to when he's running back to his hotel room where the cops are. There's the scene where De Niro is sort of in a doorway that we see him there for a second. And that's kind of the only, he is under like a cloak or something, but
yeah.
Was there anything surprising to you about the mechanics of the infamous blood rain sex scene?
It's a very wet scene all around. There's a lot of things flowing in that scene.
Yeah.
I had completely forgotten that she's his daughter, so that kind of adds a very gross wrinkle to the whole thing.
Yeah.
I guess there's the implied spoiler alert as we begin our Unkind Rewind, but yeah, I actually did not see that coming.
No.
So that was pretty gross.
And watching it a second time, that was really gross because I had totally forgotten it. And then going back, it was like, ooh, yeah.
Yeah.
Now the whole dynamic between the two of them is really ruined. The second time you watch it, it is no bueno.
Yeah. When he's checking out her like wet nips from washing her hair. Yeah, it's pretty gross.
I can take myself to being 19 and watching it and being like, oh, yeah, that's awesome.
Awesome.
It's a little creepier now because she's, 18 when she shot it. And you're like, I don't know how I feel about this. But whatever. I mean, Lisa Bonet is inarguably very attractive.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I mean, she's a stunner. I don't know how, Josh, you probably looked up her actual age for this movie.
I'd read she was 18. I didn't check her birth date against the shooting dates.
Mm-hmm.
So her Wikipedia page says she was 19 when they started shooting.
I saw it in a different place where I'd seen 19 and then I saw that it was 18. What's her birthday?
November 16th, 67.
She would have been 18 because this shot from March 31st to June 20th of 86. When it came out, she was 19. It's not SVU, so I don't feel like I need to make sure that they're not ruining young children.
Although there is a SVU actor in this, isn't there?
Big time. Dan Florek.
Yeah, Dan Florek. Kragan.
We love him.
I mean, you guys know probably his career more than I do, but does he dip his hand in kind of the creepy, weird roles a lot, or is he normally a good guy?
We haven't dug into him.
Yeah, we actually haven't done that. Huh.
But a lot of the main cast we haven't hit on.
I could have used a lot more of him in this.
Yeah.
It would have been good to kind of see him show up.
They shot his death.
They shot his death, but they did not include it in the film.
It got cut. There was a shitload they shot a lot.
Yeah, because in a very, very limited capacity, he's very good in this.
Yeah. There's a flash where they kind of show him in a like crazy montage or whatever. I get it's not really a montage. It's more frenetic than that, or at least more frenetic than montage feels. And they do kind of show him like, oh, he's died in that like flash of images, but it's not as fucked up as like the photo shoot. Cause there was a photo shoot for a magazine article about the making of this that had Alan Parker like over Florek's dead body. So,
oh damn!
Okay,
yeah.
And he was killed with a fan.
But it was a teaser, yeah. We'll get into the fan nonsense in a bit. So, how do you think the sex scene played to 9-year-old Adam?
The blood rain sex scene.
The sex scene.
I think by that point in the film, I was so kind of grossed out and freaked out by it that it was less titillating than that earlier scene. Like I remember that being like, "Whoa, what's going on here?" And then like the movie gets just so. Like, so many people die in such horrible ways. Yeah. I was pretty horrified by the time we got to the end.
Were you at all concerned that that's how sex worked?
It doesn't?
I mean, there is, I think, for an adolescent to see something like this, I think it would be pretty confusing on how the hell such sex works from watching this as your primer.
Yeah. And this was like before I don't
want to pry too much, but the choking.
Yeah, but like. Yeah. So basically, I lay on top of someone and then I kind of like diagonally slant or spin my body. I mean, like Mickey Rourke is doing all type of calisthenics in this. And are we confirmed that that's true Rourke butt? And
Oh, yeah.
That's Rourke butt.
It was a 3-hour sex scene.
That's all.
Yeah.
Shooting.
And there were only like 5 people in the room.
Yep.
When they shot it.
I've been there. I have had the closed set sex scenes.
Yeah.
Primarily dry. No.
There were just copious fluids coming from the ceiling.
Nah, not from me.
This is you and Kay, Stu?
No.
Was this in The Gift of Africa?
No. There's various sex scenes that have come up in my dark independent years.
Yeah, the obvious one, I would assume that it was a closed set for Deep Dark.
It was a closed set for that, closed set for Grimm.
Deep Dark, by the way, everyone should be watching on Amazon Prime.
Yeah, maybe there's some podcasts about Deep Dark right now.
So how did the sex scene play to 44-year-old Adam?
Oh, it's awesome. Super hot. Yeah. It's super violent, though.
Yeah, it is. It takes a turn.
Yeah.
Adam, but like, outside of the blood stuff, like, you must see sex scenes like this every day of the week.
In his bedroom?
Well, well, he wouldn't be watching those.
Yeah.
But does this scene really feel like that crazy nowadays? Like, I didn't think it was that X-rated.
They had to cut 10
Justified it.
seconds to get a fucking R rating.
I don't get
They
it.
had to cut
And it wasn't
10
the
seconds to
choking,
Mickey
it was
Rourke's ass.
it was ass thrusting.
I don't get
Yeah.
it.
I know the MPAA are Puritans. It's fucking
Yeah, it's
bullshit.
bullshit.
I don't see it. Even his thrustings are not like a natural hip sway.
But it's also clearly not pornographic, right?
Right.
Like, that scene is not playing to fire you up and get you randy, right?
It's not Basic Instinct.
No.
Without some type of money shot, whatever, I don't care. I don't think that this
Yeah,
warranted
right?
an X rating.
Agreed.
It's
Agreed.
ridiculous.
I agree.
So you talked about how you felt after watching this.
Mm-hmm. And I remember afterwards being like traumatized by this movie. Like, I felt ill after having watched this.
I think
Are you sure that wasn't arousal?
It was a
Did
little
you
bit of both.
did you not know what
a
it
little bit
was?
of both.
Like, was this?
I didn't. I was
Yeah.
seriously, Josh. Seriously, it was the wrong age to watch this.
Fantastic.
I think that's completely fair.
Yeah.
Like a 9-year-old shouldn't watch that. They have to process what's going on and all that stuff. And I stand by that. And it made me feel pretty gross after I saw it. I was like, I didn't like that. I remember saying that. Like, that was not okay.
Did you feel ill watching it this time?
Oh, no. No,
Okay.
I felt great watching
Okay.
it. Yeah,
All right.
I loved it. I felt ill sometimes just at how sweaty Mickey Rourke was. The layer of grime on him.
Because you've been there, and whenever you've been there, it's like you're
Just wanna,
hungover.
like, scrape it off. Yeah.
he had a smell to him
Oh yeah.
this entire
Oh,
movie.
yeah. Big time.
So there's an old Interview Magazine feature article with Lisa Bonet. She's talking about getting in the right headspace for the sex scene.
Mm-hmm.
And she had talked to, it was then her boyfriend, but obviously they married shortly thereafter. But she talked to Lenny Kravitz, and he was just like, use some music, get in the right headspace, and then just let go, So then she gets to set, and she's like, Mickey Rourke is listening to Pet Shop Boys, and she thought that she was at the Palladium, which probably has a different meaning in 1988 than it does now. But it's still funny. Like, she was not turned on at all because he's like on set listening to Pet Shop Boys. So how do you think 9-year-old Adam processed watching this?
He was horrified. He did not know what was going on, and it just kept getting weirder and weirder. Like, he didn't know what was going on with the elevators or the fans
Sure.
or the chickens. None of it made sense to him.
I'd posit that the fans still don't make sense, but
Voodoo was a big deal for me as a kid. Like, not in my life, but in like pop culture. It was like voodoo were like, ninjas or
There was like a good voodoo run in the culture.
voodoo ninjas, Jamaican bad guys. Yeah.
it
Yeah.
had a really good run.
This is all a thing in the late 80s. Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, Weekend at Bernie's too, which I'm disappointed that you never put that on after Weekend at Bernie's, Sean, but
Yeah. We should merge Weekend at Bernie's 2.
and Fletch Lives.
No, with
Yeah.
Predator 2.
Oh, for sure.
I love
So that
I love
those
that
Jamaican guys somehow.
plan. Dude, I
like-
love those Jamaican guys. They're so cool.
Well, maybe Predator can't figure out how to kill Bernie. And that, like,
Oh,
he returns to his race, like, completely, like, embarrassed.
I think that works.
Because it's, like, the one human that he couldn't hunt.
I mean, I feel bad about putting that out there on a podcast where anyone can steal this idea. But,
Yeah.
Go for it.
because this is gold.
Yeah. Timestamp that shit.
So watching now, were there moments that took you back to that place as a 9-year-old where you didn't know how to feel about this at all?
Oh, yeah. Pretty much from the beginning to the end. You know, like, and little things, you know, the things I brought up, but the glasses with the nose shield, that really brought me back. And it's like, what are those?
We need to talk about that.
Let's do it now.
Those were amazing. And
Yeah.
it made so much sense, too. This is probably the
Pre-sunscreen. Yeah.
pre-sunscreen. He gets them from what? The Coney Island guy?
Yeah, the guy in Coney Island. The guy who, like, eats
He's a geek, yeah.
Yeah.
It offers more support for probably keeping your frames on. You're way ahead of the skin cancer game. The ozone layer is probably holding up pretty well in 1955.
But not in 1987.
Yeah, so maybe a bit more functional for the actors.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, kind of a cool thing. I mean, it reminded me a little bit of Jack Nicholson in Chinatown, the way that they kind of bandaged up his nose.
Sure.
Yeah, definitely.
Definitely a lot of nods to the detective genre, you know, hard-boiled shit.
Yeah, and Harry Angel is certainly, like, we are rooting for this guy. We like his journey.
Yeah.
We want good things to happen to him, you know, before the twist is revealed.
And even then, I don't feel like he has a consciousness of anything, you know, like...
Because, yeah, the devil is making him do it.
Right.
But I think it's easy to be sympathetic to him through the end.
I definitely think, like, Mickey Rourke, my God, had that charm, especially with that very, very sweet voice.
Yeah.
You cannot figure out kind of what he's saying with his kind of molasses bass that he's got now. But boy, in 1987, I mean, he's a castrati almost. He's up there on a, like an alto level through most of this movie.
He's on top of the world at this point, man.
He really is.
Yeah, so he's coming off of what? He's coming off of Diner,
Pope of Greenwich Village.
Pope of Greenwich Village.
I have his page.
9.5 weeks is after this, right? It's next year? Is that 88 or 80?
That's...
He was in one of the Coppola, what, The Outsiders or
No, 9.5
Rumblefish?
weeks was the year before. 86.
Okay.
Yeah. He was in Rumblefish.
Yeah.
So all the stars are aligning for this guy, right? Not a bad looking guy, very charming, has like a nice kind of rhythm.
At this point, I think it's hard to argue that he wasn't kind of thought of as like his generation's Brando.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There's a quote somewhere where if he had died after Angel Heart, he would have been James Dean, basically.
Yeah, and God love him for the very cool Strike on Anywhere matches.
Oh, I know. The fucking Double Indemnity throwback to McMurray.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Especially the one time he does it with a thumb, you're like, oh, that's an F.
That's really
Yeah.
good.
I'm just telling you, movie characters, you want to be one of my guys?
Find a cool way to strike a match.
Figure out how to start a match on your fingernail.
Or off a dead guy's fucking shoe.
What a baller move. And the cigarette budget on this thing was astronomical, too.
lot.
So there was a lot of lighting cigarettes.
Well, I mean, when he pours out the ashtray from his car, and it's onto the street, by the way.
Yeah.
Very 50s move. A lot of butts. A lot of butts going out onto the fucking streets of New Orleans, probably Magazine Street.
Yeah.
Sadly, also a move that is employed today, usually in the car right in front of me at a stoplight. I'm like, oh, dude. You're going to fucking pull that shit?
So you noted that the bulk of the things you recalled were very fucked up. Were your expectations for a fucked up film met upon rewatching Angel Heart?
Oh, yeah. Like in the fever dream aspect of it, it's totally a mess. Everybody dies in a gruesome manner, and we don't really fully see it on screen, but we sort of do at the end. And it's a pretty fucked up movie, man. There's a pretty high body count following this guy around.
Sure.
And he stole some guy's soul, man. That's fucked up.
Well, Johnny Favorite did.
Well, that's him.
But I think there's an argument to be made that, like, Johnny Favorite sort of lost consciousness.
Yeah. Well, he hid in somebody else's
He
body.
hid in someone else's body, but then I think he didn't know that he wouldn't have consciousness when he hid in that body. And so then I think you still have Harry Angel acting out things as though he doesn't know that Johnny Favorite is in him.
Oh, exactly. Yeah, he doesn't know that, even though.
Yeah, so we're still ostensibly viewing everything through Harry Angel's POV, not Johnny Favorite's, and so it gets a little murky.
True.
It gets a little murky, and also there was that scene with Cruz Mark's father
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
that felt like a panicked, like, oh shit, we have to
Make this make sense.
we have to wrap up 6 or 7 plot points here, and we got 45 seconds.
The script has 18 more scenes that we have to shoot, and we're not going to get them done. We're over budget.
I mean, he's not really in a position. I mean, he doesn't particularly have any incentive.
Mm-hmm.
He's not being threatened the way that Toots was, or Tuts, or whatever his name was.
Toot sweet.
Toot sweet. Yeah.
Toots sweet. It just felt like he was reading off of a teleprompter. This scene did not test well. We have to go back and do a reshoot where we explain what the hell's going on.
Test audiences. That'd be hilarious for this movie. I'd love to see test audience scores for Angel Heart.
There had to have been a test audience for Angel Heart that just left shaken.
There are 47 people in fucking Wichita who saw this and were like, what the fuck happened? And they saw the real X rating.
Yeah, they saw Dan Florrick's head get chopped off with a fan.
Are we talking like a ceiling fan?
I can't, I don't know.
Oh boy.
I'm not sure.
I just read a description. I haven't actually seen it.
So I asked you who you thought 9-year-old Adam was before and immediately after watching Angel Heart, and if this changed you, and you responded thusly.
I mean, it might have. It's entirely possible that I have a whole bunch of fucking kink fetishes that are rooted in watching Angel Heart at the wrong age.
The implication there being that you do have kink fetishes.
I mean, maybe I need to unlock them. I don't know, but
Can you think of
I was a very normal child who lived in that kind of idyllic near suburb kind of world where it didn't feel like anything bad was ever going to happen. And then I watched this movie and I was like, oh yeah, bad things are going to happen. So maybe that, and then that was before I moved. We moved to Texas, probably the summer after I watched that. And that was
again related to you having seen this movie, I'm sure.
Probably, exactly.
Your parents had to get you away from it.
100%. They're far away as we can go. And then we lived in a place where I didn't know anybody in the neighborhood and couldn't walk anywhere. It was lame. So that was a big adjustment. So yeah, that's probably my peak. Actually, honestly, it's probably all been downhill since then.
Do you think there's anything to your hypothesis that this could have brought that feeling of safety and security to an end?
Well, it is an interesting idea because, yeah, I did kind of live in an idealized world. It was a bubble, yeah. And we left the bubble. We still, we didn't live in a bad neighborhood or anything like that. But I do wonder if watching this right before we moved, just set me up for a long slide into whatever it is I am now,
Do you think you peaked at 9?
Now that I think about it, I definitely had lots of great times and good experiences after that. But maybe the road forked at 9 for me.
Could this have desensitized you at all, Adam? Could this have maybe dulled the sting of a movie you saw after this? Because you've seen Angel Heart?
It's possible. It's one of those things. It's well, I've already seen that. So anything else I watch, any horror movie I watch, it's kind of, if I watch Nightmare on Elm Street or something, it's going to seem ridiculous kind of compared to this because it's a lot campier and less visceral. And so I think that, yeah, maybe that is the case. But yeah, no, I don't think I peaked at 9. I think it was a time because I was moving.
Who peaks at 9?
But everything in my mind, everything in my world changed right after this. And so it's an interesting thought to think about whether Angel Heart had some part to play in that. I don't think it really did, but it did kind of fuck me up for a couple days. That's for sure after I watched it.
There's also probably a degree of truth or an element of truth to the idea that seeing something like this at that age, where it's the kind of formative experience of this sort that does kind of reconfigure the world for you in a way.
Yeah. If you go into my bedroom, you'll notice that there's a contraption to spray blood at me whenever I'm using it that way. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. It's an important part of my process.
Yeah. So Sean asked if you remembered having seen an explicit sex scene before this.
So I think this is you would call it softcore. It wasn't like hardcore. or
No,
anything.
but
I
it
definitely
would be
had
explicit.
seen Revenge of the Nerds before this, which had some strong sexual content, I'd say.
Yeah, I don't know that it's played for...
It's not played as like sexy as this is.
Yeah.
I can't remember if I'd seen 9.5 Weeks before
But this
or
made
after
you
this.
a Mickey Rourke fan?
Oh, 100%. And I've met Mickey Rourke, right? Have I told you the story how I met Mickey Rourke?
There's a chance you saw 9.5 Weeks before this?
No, I don't think so. I really don't think so. I think I did see 9.5 Weeks
At a young age.
at a young age, but it was boring to me. I didn't really get into it. It didn't stick with me the way that Angel Heart did.
So, Mickey Rourke, meeting him, how did that happen?
So during South by Southwest, I lived in Austin for a long time. And South by Southwest, huge festival. I used to get a platinum badge by volunteering, and I volunteered with the same outfit every time. We were the door people for exclusive film parties. So I met a lot of celebrities that way. But in 2005, it was Sin City was doing a casting call. I think it was 2005. But one of the first years I did it, we're at Stubbs. Stubbs is this big outdoor venue that has like an indoor area too and has like a balcony. It's a huge venue. It's a nice place. And Robert Rodriguez was having a Sin City like casting party. They had already cast all the principals, but they wanted to like get rough and tumble looking dudes to show up and cast them as extras.
This is why you were there?
Well, I was the door guy.
And I'm joking.
And yeah, I was the door guy. And, I don't know, Robert Rodriguez went through and a few other people that I recognized. But then somebody like came up to me and was like, "Oh, so Mickey Rourke is coming out of this car. So make sure you are nice to him." I was like, "I know who fucking Mickey Rourke is. Of course I'm going to like,
I saw Angel Heart when I was 9, motherfucker.
Yeah, seriously. So Mickey Rourke walks out with his bud. I don't know who his buddy was, but some other scumbag ne'er-do-well.
Probably a boxing buddy.
Probably. Yeah, because Mickey Rourke had been boxing
for 15
like 20 years at
yeah.
this point. And his face, it has this like textural quality that most people don't have. It's
post-fighting, yes.
Yes, there's a depth to his skin. His skin is very thick.
There's a puttiness. Yeah.
Yes. And his head is very large. But he showed up and he was having fun. So I kind of ushered him into the venue, which was like, he knew where the door was. I just had to be like...
Was this on the, 8th Street side?
No, on the Red River side.
Okay.
On the Red River side. And then later on, I switched and there was like a VIP area, like lounge on the upstairs balcony. So we were like just letting the VIPs in there. And I was standing out in front of that with this blonde girl. I don't know her name. I've never met her since then. And Mickey Rourke and his fucking buddy come up. They're not talking to me. They're talking to her. And they're just like leaning against the post talking to her. And Mickey Rourke is like, "So where's the best strip clubs in town?" And she was very uncomfortable. And I was like...
Yellow Rose.
No, that's not where he ended up. He ended up at, what's the place on South Lamar, like right before Ben White? I know this because it made the news the next day. There used to be a place, it was like kind of up on a hill, right? No, South Congress, maybe?
South Congress.
Yeah, it's Congress. Not Ecstasy.
It's not Ecstasy.
Ecstasy was the full nude place, right?
Yeah.
Anyways, he ended up at that place and got thrown out later that evening. So he was getting lit up early, I think, that night.
And you led him down the primrose path to self-destruction?
I don't think he needed any help, Josh. He was already well on his way.
But you told him to go there?
I didn't tell him to do shit. I was just like, I feel very uncomfortable having Mickey Rourke saying inappropriate things to this girl I'm supposed to be working with. So I guess I tried to like have her back, but also not fight with the celebrities.
So, and I guess this can be open to all of us. How was it seeing peak Mickey Rourke ply his trade this time around?
Sean might have professional notes, but I think Mickey Rourke is fucking amazing.
Yeah, I agree. It's almost a shame they couldn't like kind of stick that third act because you make some changes and, we get a really kind of dark, interesting, good, twisty kind of role for him. I really think that this movie was kind of kneecapped in the last 20, 30 minutes.
I think if you bring in like a Robert Towne or somebody who could have like, no, let's tweak this and that and this and that. I think this becomes Sure, Goldman too, not knocking Goldman, but I think Towne is the one who you want to go to for this specifically because Chinatown's so fucking perfect.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I don't know if he would have done it, but
in this time. Two Jakes hasn't come out for 3 years. Like, I think he's probably welcoming the work at that point. I think you bring in someone like that. Goldman could work too, but you bring in the right writer, and this is an all-timer.
Yeah, and I think people found it really hard. I mean, the Brando comparison is good. He doesn't have that kind of physical presence. Brando was just an absolute brick house, and we see him...
Sure, but I think there's a charisma that... There's a slight, super slight, but a very slight, like... difference in, like, I think Rourke is a little more charismatic than Brando is.
Yeah, and the charisma comes from kind of a smart-assy
absolutely
background where it
like a postmodern smart-ass thing going on, sure.
Yeah, which was not Brando.
No.
You know, Brando did not have the kind of wiliness.
No,
and
not at all.
Let me see how I can push the envelope and get out of this situation. I can talk my way out. I can. He's a lot like Deckard.
Absolutely.
In Blade Runner. You know, just... who's not ever physically imposing in that movie, but somehow finds ways to kind of squirm his way out of situations with the replicants.
Which I think is more interesting, personally.
Yeah, I do too. Even when he is kind of taking advantage of somebody physically in a scene, it's like by surprise, right? When he headbutts the hillbillies.
Right.
Or when it's an 80-year-old blues musician. But he almost gets killed a couple times in this, and he does get roughed up. He gets thrown through windows. I mean, the guy that kicks him out of the bar in Louisiana, like, yeah, I mean, Mickey Rourke is, yeah, he's going to get his ass handed to him the way that Brando would never.
But like him in that scene with the nurse, Kathleen Wilhoit, who, of course, is in Roadhouse.
Yeah. She had a good... I think she had a good little run on ER as well.
That scene with her at the hospital, the mental hospital that Johnny Favorite was released from, that scene with her is fucking great.
And she absolutely, like, violates HIPAA in 5 minutes because...
HIPAA, to be fair to her...
HIPAA might not have existed.
HIPAA might not have existed in 1955.
Like ballpoint pens.
Yes.
In 1943. You know who she reminded me so much of in that scene was Chloe Sevigny. Like the way that she was kind of done up, I was like, this is very Chloe.
I was getting big Joan Cusack vibes off of her, but
okay, no, I got a little sexier than Joan Cusack. No disrespect intended to the great Joan, but yeah, he gets her to kind of completely sacrifice her professional integrity in 2 minutes with putting on those glasses. I loved how Mickey Rourke would whip out the fucking bifocals or the
sure. The bows were also always like way above the ear. Like no one who wore glasses would ever wear glasses like that.
Yeah. He put them on like the way like a nerd comes out of like a kissing booth or something like that. Or it's just like, oh gosh.
In Saved by the Bell.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
The list of roles Mickey Rourke has turned down is insane.
It's positively nuts.
48 Hours, Platoon, Top Gun, Beverly Hills Cop, Rain Man, Silence of the Lambs, Pulp Fiction, Tombstone. Like, insane.
Pulp Fiction was Bruce Willis. The Bruce Willis Butch character.
Wow. Holy shit.
Right?
Yeah, no, it was the Butch character. Yeah, he was offered Butch before Bruce Willis, yeah.
So in the pre-interview, we talked about Lisa Bonet getting kicked off The Cosby Show. To clarify, she didn't get fired for this, or at least just this. 1987 saw her go off to a different world for its first season, and when she asked Bill Cosby about doing this role with nudity when she was still on Cosby, he had apparently told her to just go do the movie. I've read a couple of different accounts of this and how dismissive or encouraging he was of it, or sort of contested. So 1987 saw her go off to a different world for its first season. Of course, footage needed to be cut from this to avoid an X rating. And the interview where she said Cosby was fine with it was an Interview magazine where she also posed topless. So it seems like she was maybe moving away from this family-oriented image Cosby was retrospectively disingenuously peddling. Then she also married Lenny Kravitz and got pregnant, and Cosby fired her for getting pregnant, basically. He did bring her back later with her military husband and stepdaughter, played by Raven Simone, but they kept butting heads and she was fired again for the last time. Just a little clarity for what we peddled last week. Now, Sean thought that it sounded like at least we got consensual sex in Angel Heart, which Cosby's scores of victims did not get.
That's probably his problem with the film.
Though Adam and I did caution that there was voodoo involved, so who knows? Do we think that this was consensual sex?
I mean, she was definitely into it before they got down, right?
So I definitely think it was consensual. I mean, she was into it, like Adam said, before they got down to it. I mean, no could be interpreted many different ways when she's screaming.
Right.
Yeah, at the end of it, I don't know if it's consensual anymore.
Yeah.
But it definitely seems like it is at the beginning.
Yeah, the choking bits are maybe non-consensual, but the bulk of the sex seems consensual. And we are meant to believe, from having seen her in scenes after this, that she did not die in this scene.
See, I'm not 100% there, Josh, because it's such a fever dream.
Has anyone else watched this twice in the last week?
No.
No.
Okay, well, I have.
God, no.
I think it's pretty clear that
I've watched this twice in the last 40 years.
I'm pretty sure that she lives after this.
I would acquiesce to Josh simply because of that.
Did you watch this by yourself, or did you watch it with your wife, Adam?
I did watch it by myself. I was going to watch it with her, but she has so little time that it just didn't work out. So I watched it by myself.
Can you imagine, like, this poor woman sitting down? She's got a couple hours in the week to watch a movie with her husband, and it's fucking Angel Heart.
Oh, she's into stuff like that. She would have enjoyed
Oh, wow.
it,
I mean, yeah. I don't know, man. Like,
no, Megan's pretty awesome.
No, I don't doubt that. But Angel Heart, of all the things that are out there, especially now in kind of award season where everybody's trying to kind of rush and watch really good stuff.
To the audience, we're recording this on February 6th.
Yeah. So do you know how, like, when you're a kid, you kind of mishear things and they become facts? I forever associated Angel Heart with, like, a chicken heart scene. Like chicken hearts being cut out. For 30 years, my kid mind, the only association I had with this movie was like, oh yeah, that's the movie where like chicken hearts get cut out.
Sure.
I could see that.
Much in the same way that there's a Harry Potter movie with my boy Arpats, who's on the swim team.
You two are tight.
Yeah, we're tight. But he's on the swim team at Hogwarts, and because I don't know those movies or know those books, when I was in Twilight and people asked me who was in it with me, I said, the kid who drowns in Harry Potter. And I got the weirdest looks. I was like, yeah, he drowns. He's on the swim team or something. He drowns. And they're like, what the fuck?
What are you talking about?
Do you still have to hand it to Mr. Dodge for gleefully leaning into letting you watch this when you were far too young?
Oh, yeah. It's a baller move. I wouldn't do it with my own child. But am I glad that it was done to me? Yeah, absolutely.
What do you think the line of demarcation is for when you would let Max's friends watch this?
Watch Angel Heart?
With you in the room.
I don't know. 15?
14 or 15, I think, is apt.
Yeah.
I'm not the parent of this trio here, but neither is Josh. But
no.
The bigger deal, though, with Mr. Dodge is that he let you watch it.
He did.
But, like, let your friend, his son, watch the movie. Mm-hmm. But bringing you into that without the parents' permission, without, like, an okay, without a call, anything like that.
That's a baller move. Yeah. Parental permission. Nah.
Yeah, it's bullshit.
It feels more like a big brother move than a father, than a dad.
100%.
Like a responsible thing.
Absolutely.
But still
totally
Awesome.
irresponsible.
It could have been much worse for Adam, is what I'm saying. Like, it could have been like a very special episode of Different Strokes where it's just like, here, watch this porno.
The very special episode of Different Strokes with the bike guy.
Yeah. Did that also happen, Adam?
Were you perped on by Gordon Jump?
But yeah, I mean, it could have been much worse than Angel Heart. It seemed like Mr. Dodge had a pretty cavalier attitude with what his son's friends were privy to.
Yeah, at least Angel Heart is an interesting film, right? So it's got redeeming qualities, even if it's probably not appropriate for a 9-year-old.
Let's throw to the Sean segment.
I mean, there's a lot to talk about with this movie.
Tons.
There's tons to talk about with this movie. You know, it was really funny to kind of watch Mickey Rourke, who is the only white guy in like a 20-mile radius, sneak around a voodoo ceremony in a white suit. Like, there's some detective work that goes right out the window. We talk a lot about the fans, and maybe one of you guys have already talked about this, but the amount of stairwells in this movie is staggering.
Mm-hmm.
In a city that doesn't go above 3 stories generally.
Right. We have kind of a creepy elevator that takes front and center through the credits, which I want to talk about how kind of interesting that was.
Oh, yeah.
We almost never, ever see something like that.
So your segment is on levels.
I think levels and colors.
Okay.
No, I mean, I don't know. Like, I expected the R rating to be so much harder than this. I expected to have it be so much more traumatizing, to have the visuals be way more brutal.
Sure, this is being damned in your eyes by the MPAA.
Yeah, I mean, even aside from that, just the legend of Angel Heart.
That's surely because of the, like, okay, we have to cut footage to get
But I didn't
R.
know any of that, right? I'm talking to you.
You may not have known that, but the legend of this film surely owes to that. Surely owes to having...
Okay, let me just
Alan
say
Parker
this.
was already cutting it down before he submitted it.
Jacob's Ladder.
Yeah.
I totally understood what everybody was talking about. There's a lot of shit in that movie I rather had not seen.
Yeah.
There's nothing really in Angel Heart that I feel that way about. Like, there's a couple grotesque scenes. There's a dead body here and there.
There's the skinning the muskrat or whatever, or possum or whatever.
Sure,
the fuck.
sure.
Yeah.
There's a gratuitous sex scene, right?
Mm-hmm.
But, like, I was very surprised coming out on the edge of this thing pretty clean.
Because an extreme reputation preceded this.
Yeah.
Its reputation far outweighs anything that happens in those 2 hours.
Yeah.
I didn't love this movie. Like, I loved kind of the first half of it. I thought we could have gone such a sharper, smarter way for the final 20 minutes.
Sure.
Yeah, we can talk about endings later. But yeah, it's almost like I want to apologize a little bit for the reputation this movie has while also not endorsing it.
Sure.
I think I was like, oh, fuck. Like, there's going to be something in this that is going to wake me up at 4 a.m. There's going to be something in this that I have to live in this goddamn city, Adam.
Yeah.
That I'm going to go down the wrong alley and see the thing that's going to trigger an Angel Heart memory.
It's going to be an elevator or stairwell.
We weren't talking too long ago when I walked past a body under a tarp a block or two away from where I live. So, like, there is some
the old blood on the street.
The old fresh blood on
Yeah.
the street, which is a tough thing for me still in New York. But yeah, I guess I was, I'm a little bit of an apologist and want to kind of go back and tell adolescent Sean that, like, yeah, it's certainly not for you. It's certainly, like, above your pay grade. It's going to be a little traumatic, but, like, it is not what
Sure.
it has become. And so I think moving forward, every time this movie comes up, I'm going to kind of have my little, like, spiel of, like, it's fine. Like, you've seen way worse shit on the news.
If you have social media, you've seen stuff that's so
way
much worse.
worse shit on an HBO series, and you've forgotten about it.
It's okay for kids to watch this again.
Yeah, 9-year-olds should watch Angel Heart.
Is that what the takeaway from what I just said? Okay.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. So good job, Sean.
All right.
Adam, what's your segment for this?
Well, I didn't really come up with a real segment, but I want to talk about how much I liked the sound in this film.
Okay.
Whether it be the sound design of the fans or whatever other things, or the wonderful soundtrack, which I think is Trevor Jones, right? Is that
sure is.
who did it? Yeah.
Who also created the score for Labyrinth, which Sean very specifically hated.
Yeah, I really hated it, but I think that he has improved over the couple years since Labyrinth.
I think it works here.
Yeah.
Did you guys notice that whether it's an elite motif or whether it's just something that he's playing when things are getting creepy, there's almost like a underwater whale noise?
Oh, yeah. That's the synclavier.
Oh my God. Like, what a good way to kind of, like...
Thank God for Adam getting that out of my notes section on my background.
Well, I read about the synclavier too, Josh. But yes, I'm looking at your... I'm looking at the background.
And like always, when Adam mentions a synclavier, take a shot.
Yeah.
Boom.
You should.
Yeah, no, I think it was an improvement from Labyrinth, which, like, as we talked about in that episode, the soundtrack is mostly shit as well. Except for...
Yeah, it's not here. Jones brought in jazz musician Courtney Pine for the sax solos, but I think the score is very effective here.
Yeah.
I think you can look at Angel Heart as being, and probably as one of the only gamers on this podcast, quite an influence for creepy games that started to crop up in the 90s and early 2000s.
There was a game called Gabriel Knight, Sins of the Father. Did you ever play that?
I've heard
You're
of
a detective in New Orleans figuring out voodoo shit. And it was one of those King's Quest. Do you remember that stuff? Police Quest?
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
I'd never finished any of those games, but I had some of them. But I totally played that one. Maybe that's why I remember that game so much, is because of Angel Heart in retrospect.
Well, it's $20 online right now. You can get it. You can get the 20th anniversary edition.
Nice.
But yeah, like the type of like almost discordant music
Oh, yeah.
that kind of runs through this was aped considerably in like this series, like Silent Hill.
Yeah.
Very, very creepy games. Feel a lot like Angel Heart. Like you're a private detective. You're figuring things out.
Mm-hmm.
Shit just keeps getting weirder.
Yeah. You did it.
You did it. Yeah.
You're the criminal.
Yeah. This is a video game.
So, Adam, you were hard for the sound design.
Oh, yeah. I was very hard for the sound design. I love every time there's a squeaking fan. I really enjoyed it. Every time there's like moans in the background from strange women carrying bedpans full of like organs, I think is what they're carrying. Various solids and red liquids. Love all of it.
As far as the film's background, this was based on William Hjortsberg, his novel from 1978. A horror detective novel, Falling Angel. He also wrote the screenplay for the 1985 Ridley Scott film, Legend.
Mm-hmm.
Hjortsberg had developed the screenplay at Paramount for the adaptation of this, with John Frankenheimer attached, but after that option ran out and got Robert Redford interested as a director, and this is in the early 80s, and all the major studios passed on Hjortsberg's script. Apparently, they were unanimous in wanting a happy ending for this.
Fuck off.
So in 1985, Elliot Kastner, who'd produced 3 adaptations of Raymond Chandler novels, he'd done those in the 70s, so it was obviously the Altman Long Goodbye.
Okay.
And then Long Kiss Goodnight and Farewell, My Lovely. The 2 Michael Winter ones with Mitchum playing Philip Marlowe.
Yeah.
So he developed this with the director of Midnight Express and fame, Alan Parker, who adapted this screenplay on his own while securing funding from Mario Kassar and Andrew G. Vanya, who ran the $18 million production through their independent film studio, Kuroko.
Oh, I've seen that logo.
Big time. They had begun making a name for themselves with Escape to Victory, the Sly and Pele soccer prison movie, and the Rambo films. Mm-hmm. So De Niro was initially who Parker wanted to play Harry Angel, but De Niro wanted to cameo as Louis Cifer. It took months to get De Niro to commit to the project. Then Parker went to Jack Nicholson, who passed. And then it seems like Parker went straight from, it was basically De Niro to Nicholson to Mickey Rourke. Yeah. And Rourke was immediately on board. Now, Lisa Bonet auditioned and got the part of Epiphany Proudfoot, with Parker not knowing that she'd even been on The Cosby Show. Like, he didn't know what The Cosby Show was. So, principal photography lasted from March 31st to June 20th of 1986. Ice trucks used for the fake snow. Parker tried to shoot in areas of New York that had not been shot to death, namely Harlem and Alphabet City. Then the rest of the Louisiana footage was shot in New Orleans, largely around the old Irish section along Magazine Street and Thibodaux.
Apparently the shacks where Lisa Bonet lives, that was all there. It was like a real sharecropper's former slave quarters. They set up the cemetery, but they didn't set up anything else.
Rourke and De Niro have actually been in a feud since this film. Apparently it goes back to Mickey Rourke being very pissed that De Niro would not talk to him off camera.
Huh.
He basically took it as a slight and felt like, hey, we're actors. But De Niro was like, no, I can't talk to you. I'm supposed to be Louis Cifer.
Yeah.
I mean, Daniel Day-Lewis has pulled that kind of shit too, but no one's in a feud with him.
Yeah.
Rourke was supposed to have been in The Irishman, and then De Niro put the nix on it.
Oh, really?
So this is still going as of 2022 or whatever, but like that is a solid 30 years later.
Awesome.
No love lost between the two.
I like a good feud.
This has an 82% on Rotten Tomatoes with positive reviews from Ebert and Peter Travers. The critical reaction at the time was a lot more mixed, Pauline Kael found fault in Alan Parker's direction. Vincent Canby was critical of Rourke's performance, which seems insane to me. And Siskel gave it an emphatic thumbs down, apparently.
Fucking Gene.
Fucking Gene. Now, this came in about $800,000 shy of breaking even at the domestic box office. There were VHS releases of both the R-rated cut and the uncut version. I think it's fairly safe to say when you're that close to breaking even that you more than broke even on the home video and syndication fronts.
And I think it was very popular overseas. I think it was very popular in France.
But overseas box offices weren't reported until at least like the 90s.
Nice.
Alan Parker would go on to direct Mississippi Burning, The Commitments, The Road to Wellville, Evita, Angela's Ashes, and the Austin filmed The Life of David Gale.
He spent a lot of time in Metro, the coffee shop, which would eventually become the Medici on the Drag. I spent a lot of time in that coffee shop too.
I think Alan Parker we could call a working director.
Alan Parker's career is all over the place.
Absolutely, but he got 2 Best Director nominations. Like, this isn't a joke of a director.
No, absolutely not.
He was nominated for Best Director for Midnight Express and Mississippi Burning.
Yeah.
Not all-timers.
Yeah, not my favorites of his.
But I would also posit that they're not his best films. Honestly, I think this and The Commitments are probably his 2 best films.
The Commitments is really good.
So we're going to pick up the scraps here. Is there anything that we've missed that we feel like we need to talk about?
I mean, we didn't mention at all Pruitt Taylor Vance, who shows up here.
Pruitt Taylor Vance, he is so young and thin that it's...
With hair in this, too. Like, we don't normally see that. They also framed him in a way that we really didn't showcase the eyes the way that I kind of thought they would.
Yeah, because he's obviously got like a condition.
Yeah, he's got that.
That I've never had to dig into, but I assume there's one.
So this was his first movie where his scene was released. He was in Down by Law, but they cut his scenes.
Makes sense.
You know, and Parker liked him because Parker brought him back for Mississippi Burning and I think something else. So the compliment I have for this is there is some really kind of fun dialogue. There's some really great Mickey Rourke stuff. One of my favorite lines was the devil asking Mickey Rourke if he is an atheist, and he says, "Yes, I am. I'm from Brooklyn."
Yeah, I love that too.
Just delivered really, really well there.
Now, in retrospect, it's because that's the only thing he knows about himself before that New Year's Eve parade.
So who the fuck is the dead person in the alley in the open?
Oh, yeah.
Good question.
When I watched the second time, I was like, wait, okay, there's a dead body. 0 answers as to who this person is.
Is that Johnny Favorite?
It's a woman.
Oh.
Yeah. That's just the world that Harold Angel walks in.
I also feel like we need to draw attention to how oddly Harold Angel, Harry, wears his belt. Because the belt is a solid, 3 inches below the waistline on his pants.
Interesting.
Very disturbing belt wearing in this movie. I do like that we get the His Girl Friday only topless scene.
Yeah.
I feel like we'd be remiss to not mention that we saw Pinetop Perkins, Deacon John Moore. I know there's at least one more who I'm missing somehow. But a bunch of legendary blues musicians and New Orleans jazz musicians that we somehow missed on here.
Let's gripe a little bit.
Yeah. I do think that the scenes with Charlotte Rampling's father, there's 2 scenes. The one where he goes up to the guys who are shucking oysters, and then Charlotte Rampling's father's goons show up. And I think that none of that stuff really works in the flow of the film. I find myself asking, what's going on here? Who are these guys? They didn't really introduce them in a way that I felt fit with the rest of the movie.
Sure.
But other than that, I mean, I like this a lot, so I don't have major gripes with it.
Sure. Sean?
Yeah, I mean, I think the oh shit, we have to wrap up a movie element that comes in. Having to put bows on this thing, having to do that, just diarrhea of context.
Sure.
Of you did this and this that happened. And even the scenes with De Niro at the end, it's still way more confusing than it needed to be. You needed a little bit of simplification on some of this. And, I guess it's talked about just because of how, jarring that cut is. But like for the big kind of reveal to kind of be reduced to like, we're going to give you some hard truths. We're going to do a little montage like memory thing. And then we're just going to like get some expensive contacts.
Yeah, that was a little cheesy.
I could see how being in the theater that would like jump scare you a little bit, but like you're going to do the thriller approach.
Which was hot then.
Well, I mean, yeah, we're still 3-4 years post thriller. I guess we're still basking in that contact world, but like you could have gone with your second or third idea.
My major gripe, I think, is just that there should have been more Rourke Bonet.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. More scenes with them.
The bullshit in New York could have ended 10 minutes earlier. We could have more scenes between the two of them. I think that they're the crux upon which this film works, and the two of them together are underserved. And I think that it would also mean a lot more. Like when you watch Oldboy, spoiler alert, when you watch Oldboy, like, oh no, when you have the entire film building around this and then like you get that turn, it means something.
Yeah.
They're very good together.
Bonet is great, and you give her more screen time.
Yeah, I think that's true.
I also would posit that Charlotte Rampling deserves more screen time too, but I think they need to get to New Orleans a solid half hour earlier.
Yeah.
We said Bonet's rolling into this thing at 18 or 19.
Yeah, 18.
Yeah, she's very mature.
She's phenomenal. She is a fucking force of nature.
Yeah, she's really, really good.
Yeah. Okay, so fix this movie for today. How would you fix this movie for a modern audience, starting with our quote-unquote guest, Adam? I
mean, I think we've kind of hit those notes, right? I mean, as you say, like hire Robert Towne to clean up your script, basically. Right. Maybe hire somebody that has a little bit more experience in this milieu.
Sure.
In horror or hard-boiled crime stuff to kind of make it pop a little bit better.
Sean?
I mean, I would go harder. I would make this a bigger buzz movie. Mm-hmm. I would go more sex scenes. I would go more violence.
Hard cosign.
Because right now we are, like, this is...
They shot for 3 fucking hours.
Yeah. Josh, this is milquetoast. You know what I mean? Like, at this point, for today's audience...
But at the same time, like, they don't make movies like this anymore.
Mm-hmm.
They very rarely make money. That's why. Something hard R.
Sure, and this cost, what, $18 million or something.
I mean, De Niro's going to be a big part of that fucking $18 million.
Sure.
He probably got paid, the same thing that Rourke got paid for 4 days on set or whatever it was. Mm-hmm. But as I said earlier, like, I was just a little surprised that this wasn't as sort of unpalatably grotesque or insipid. I don't know. It didn't rankle me in the way that I kind of thought it would. And I think if you were to do it today, you'd have to push the envelope even further.
The shock factor. Yeah.
So are you lobbying for the late stage about to get murdered Pier Paolo Pasolini approach to this?
I just think that this is PG-13 nowadays.
I'm 100% sure that it is not PG-13 nowadays.
I just think we've seen too much.
Mm-hmm.
I would agree with the notion that it should be taken further, but I do think that they took it further on set and then were hamstrung by the MPAA.
You could take Falling Angel, you could take the detective novel. With the right showrunner, you could make that a series, easy.
Mm-hmm. And I think that you could get away with way more on HBO.
Mm-hmm.
There's more disturbing stuff on True Detective than in this fucking movie.
I don't think that we've discussed how we would fix this for 2020. We're dealing with a bang. Johnny Angel is banging his daughter who is 17.
Yeah. But why do you want to fix that for today, Josh? That's the fucked up reveal. That's the good stuff.
I mean, you wouldn't
fix... But that's a discussion that we should have here.
Yeah.
Like, I'm sorry, but like this movie was released in 1987 and there are absolutely things that in 1987 are problematic, and we haven't even touched on race.
Yeah, we haven't talked about the race stuff at all. In fact, Bill Cosby said that after Lisa Bonet did it, he thought it was a bad idea. He apparently supported her doing it and then said it was dumb that she did it because they put a black girl doing voodoo stuff in a slave plantation.
How do we fix this movie for today? Which I think is a question that warrants exploration.
I mean, I don't know. I don't think you do. I think you appreciate it for what it is. Why would I want to fix this movie?
Yeah, we've gone into...
You either tighten up the script or you go further.
It's not like edible stuff doesn't occur in today's movies either.
But I'm not talking about edible stuff. I'm talking about like the moment that the fucking detectives step into his hotel room. Mm-hmm. There is an element that I think, kind of need to at least unpack for a second, where Prue Taylor Vince and his superior officer step into his room to avoid entirely the gun up the snatch.
That was an interesting phrase, yeah.
I mean, these are things that you wouldn't be able to do today, right?
I don't know.
I mean, I've watched The Shield. I mean, it's not like they haven't had...
Is that today? That's 20 years ago.
It is. Why can't you do that today? I mean, it's not like we see it, and it's not like we like watch it happening. And it's not like we don't think that it's extremely violent.
What's the last show that was contemporarily set that you saw that happening?
I mean, I'm just saying that it's like, why not have violent, fucked up stuff happen in a violent, fucked up movie?
This is an adult movie with adult language. Like, if I heard that phrase today, yeah, I'm going to widen my eyes a little bit, but I'm not going to clutch my pearls. I've heard and seen.
I'm absolutely not arguing about clutching your pearls. I think it's kind of fucked up that we don't see it at all as a reflection of the society that we still live in.
Yeah, I agree with that. Movies more and more are sanitized versions of reality, especially anything that's like has a studio attached to it.
Sure.
You know.
Yeah.
They dance around in front of a green screen and shoot lasers at each other.
Yeah, and if people wanted more of this, we would have made money, but it doesn't. It scares studios from doing stuff like this and staying lanes like that and having scenes like this. So
I am hard pressed to think of something that's happened since 1987.
I mean, Old Boy.
Yeah.
Is that a studio feature?
No, studio. No. Studios don't make R-rated movies anymore.
Barely.
Yeah, if they're not going to make money, then they're not going to do it. Huh. Adam, what is your favorite thing about Angel Heart?
Yes.
My favorite thing about Angel Heart? It's probably the score, honestly. I love the score.
Not the blood rain on the
blood rain is great. But really watching it, I was just like, man, I love this. It really put me right into the fucked up nonsense of it all. Yeah, the blood rain is great. That's a great scene. Mickey Rourke is great. There's a lot of things I like about it. But yeah, I think really enjoyed the score.
Sean, as a first-timer, what did you think?
Yeah, I mean, as I said, I was expecting it to be way more troubling. I think that the bones of this thing are actually pretty goddamn good.
Yeah.
That's why I guess I'm coming out of it a little disappointing, because they had really good components to making a kind of a smart, scary thriller. Well, that's also a period piece and has some cool witchcraft components. But like a lot of movies that we're probably going to talk about on this thing, they kind of bungle it. And that bothers me way more than somebody who starts with a handful of shit and it ends the same way. Mm-hmm. But foundationally speaking, Angel Heart has everything that you need to kind of pull something off. They just rush it. They panic. They sacrifice good writing because they think the charm of Rourke and the name of De Niro is going to get them most of the way across the finish line, and it doesn't.
So what was your favorite thing about this?
I mean, I love just the Rourkiness of him. I think he's perfect in this role. Mm-hmm. Yeah, he had that run that Costner would have a few years after this, where he couldn't miss. He was the biggest name. Everybody loved him. And outside of, I guess, The Wrestler and maybe a Iron Man movie, we haven't really seen too much of him. Yeah. Sin City, he's hidden behind makeup and special effects. But he's perfect in this role. I believed him as a private investigator. I believed him that he would be able to charm two beautiful women in this movie. Mm-hmm. That he would get the information that needed. And he was smart. I just wish that he had... I don't need him skipping off into the sunset, but yeah, they just kind of fuck it. In my mind. I wish they had gotten across the goal line.
Yeah. Josh?
As far as saving graces, I think you're seeing kind of peak Mickey Rourke.
100%.
I'd also posit that you're seeing peak Lisa Bonet.
She didn't get very many good acting roles after this.
For sure. I think that some of the Bonet stuff probably comes down to her being in relationships with Kravitz and then Momoa, who...
Yeah.
She didn't need to continue pursuing artistic endeavors in the sense that the general public would consider.
She was pregnant with Zoe Kravitz within a year of this movie.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think that they're the two things that really bring this film together. I do think that there could have been more if Charlotte Rampling was given more to do. But I think Rourke and Bonet really pop here.
Yeah, they did waste a lot of time with just fans and elevators.
I don't need all the fans.
That could have been used in other ways.
Yeah. So, Adam, would you like to say any last words about yourself or where listeners can find you?
Well, I'm pretty easy to find because I do a podcast with Josh, and we talk about Law & Order SVU every damn week. It's called Munch My Benson. So we are anywhere you can get a podcast.
Yeah, if you didn't get enough Dan Florek tonight, tune into Munch My Benson.
Yeah, we got a lot more of that.
A less thin, less hair Dan Florek. But yeah, it was fun to see him in this. But that's probably the place where you can find me the most easily. I have social media accounts, but I don't really do anything with them. So
you sure don't.
And I'm fine with that.
Are you getting a lot of requests from like girl name and numbers?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's 5 numbers. I
get that. Yeah.
Girl name and number that started their account summer or fall of last year that have 37 desperate men following them and who follow about 4,000 or 5,000 random people. I'm on a block party over at Twitter.
You get a lot of those?
Yeah.
All of our shit's in the notes.
I'd just like to thank Adam for joining us as our guest tonight.
Yes. Thank you, Sean. Take over.
We did a really great job. And, frankly, I would say, you might be good at this. So let's keep his number.
Well, I usually will probably be less on the verge of death, hopefully next time. So
yeah. But you know what, Adam? I'm glad I saw it. Let's bring you back when you're healthier. But you know what? I do appreciate Angel Heart here because I would definitely not have crossed it.
It's too bad that you wouldn't have. Like, I seek this shit out, but it's better for the podcast if you haven't seen it, I guess.
It's too bad you had too many priors with it. You already had like an expectation built up.
I really did. I know. I had a whole expectation about a chicken heart on a plate or something.
I mean, there was still plenty of chicken shit.
I assume that it did not horrify you too much, Sean.
No, this was perfect for me.
Well, that's good.
Yeah. I love a good gun kicking around a junk drawer in a movie.
Well, it did fire. You're wondering, like, is that gun going to fire? And it did.
Mm-hmm.
Just not where you expected it.
Chekhov was asking that question.
Yeah, not where you expected it.
There were also some cool business cards. I forgot to mention that, but yeah.
Yeah, he did have some good Rockford shit.
Uh-huh.
It seemed like it might have been a nod.
We could be a Rockford Files podcast, I think.
I love his wallet with all his different aliases. That was really cool. But yeah, thanks, Adam, for joining us. Maybe we'll talk to you again sometime.
Maybe. We'll see.
You've just listened to another installment of the Unkind Rewind podcast, mining and potentially ruining your childhood for content, one film at a time. Unkind Rewind is a Munchcast production and can be ingested wherever you listen to podcasts and on the Unkind Rewind YouTube channel. Music for this and every other episode of Unkind Rewind was composed by Divorcio Suave. Rate and review Unkind Rewind on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Good Pods, Yelp, IMDb, Consumer Reports, Google Reviews, and TripAdvisor. Links to all of our social media accounts are in our show notes, but you'll find us as @Unkind Rewind Pod on nearly every social media platform that makes sense. If you had a question, concern, complaint, or positive feedback, you can email the podcast at unkindrewindpod@gmail.com. Or you can join the lively Munchcast Discord to discuss this or any other episode of the Unkind Rewind with like-minded people. This dialogue with the pod may just make it into the next week's ep, so chat away. The Unkind Rewind Patreon will be coming soon, so start squirreling that pocket change away. Thank you for listening to another Unkind Rewind.